I am here to present to you one of the most magical starts to a season you've probably ever seen. But before I get into that, I would like to address something that has made me uncomfortable. And that is the fact that you guys didn't notice. Your agility is getting weak. I know we have a great community around these videos. You guys are awesome. I'm always reading the comments and laughing and having a good time. You know, whether you're bullying me into running, talking about Everton point deductions, or, you know, whatever else you guys get up to down there. But you missed it. I don't know if I saw a single person point it out. What's wrong with you guys? Okay, it's from the Keisuke Honda video, and I'm just gonna let you guys figure out what you missed. Because I was going to mention it, then I was like, nah, it'll be a fun Easter egg because they're totally going to notice it. Then you guys didn't notice it. But I'm not going to hand it to you. We're not getting into handouts here. This is about rugged individualism on the internet or something. How do you think you earn a forehead like this? Rugged individualism. So you're going to figure it out. And until you figure it out, I'll just keep leaving clues. Okay, that's it. I'm just going to wait until you figure out the incredibly cool trick. I just thought it was cool, and nobody noticed, and it made me sad. But anyways, yeah, there's a club in Mongolia that sucks, but like sucks in a way that is truly remarkable. So oftentimes when we are talking about teams that are very bad, which we do from time to time, it gets really interesting. There are teams around the world, seems like no matter what league you look in. I think we've gone to like the Latvian third division at one point. Hell, even yesterday talking about that team in the Swedish women's fourth division, you find these teams that clearly end up in the wrong league, right? They're clearly playing against teams that are way better equipped than them. And something happens. Something goes horribly wrong, and they end up losing by a bunch of goals because they never really stood a chance. But it is different. It is fundamentally different when that happens for a team that is not like that. When that happens for a team that is, at least on paper, still together. And at least on paper, still has the ability to compete against the teams it's playing against. And it happens in a national top league. And this is the Mongolian league. So it's not the best national top league in the world. But this is still a higher level top league out of East Central Asia, right? That's got, you know, national team players littered up and down it for the Mongolian national team and a few other disparate national teams. They even have one random Brazilian on their team. But this side, Tuv Azarganud, and a huge shout out to 433 for dropping the tweet that ended up getting me tagged in this a bunch of times, has played 9 matches this season and rung up a grand total of 0 points and a truly unbelievable minus 109 goal difference. Now, I know what look, I like to dig into this stuff, right? This is how I procrastinate. I spent 30 minutes before I turned on the record here, procrastinating by just looking into the various angles of this. And there are a couple of potentially logical explanations as to how Tuv Azarganud ends up being so bad. The first of which is Tuv Azarganud just got promoted. Right? And the second Mongolian league is terrible, and the top league's like professional, and they're just getting abused by these professional players, and they don't belong in the league. They shouldn't be in the league. Right? That's my first theory. That theory is, of course, debunked when you find out that Tuv Azarganud finished 5th in the Mongolian Premier League last year. There are 10 teams in the league, which means this is a solidly mid-table team in the Mongolian Premier League going back to last season. If you look at their schedule from last year, you see them even winning a match 9-0 over a team called Kovd. They beat Ulaanbaatar, the capital team. They beat Bavarians 9-0. They beat Falcons 1-0. Now, sure, they lost their last match of the season, right, in last year's season, but they had a pretty solid winning streak. They beat Brera Ilch 3-1. That's an important name. Remember that. We'll come back to that one later, right? They were scoring goals. They were having a good time. Now they've scored 2 goals in 9 matches. Of course, the fact they've conceded 111 is much more noteworthy, but it is a complete and utter breakdown of what this team was capable of from just last season. So the other possible logical explanation, as far as we can investigate it, is some sort of giant outflow of players. They went bankrupt. They couldn't pay any of their players anymore. But according to Transfermarkt, they had a fairly reasonable looking transfer window where 7 players departed, including 4 to Brera Ilch FC, all Mongolian, right? They lost their Brazilian Marcelinho Jr. He moved on to Brunei Darussalam. They lost a Japanese player, but don't worry, they've got more Japanese players on the roster. It's not like they lost all of their foreign superstars that might have been making a difference. And even so, they signed a Mexican right back somehow, some way. They brought in a loan of an 18-year-old Mongolian dude, right? And if you look back the season before, you look at their transfer inflow and outflow, a couple of those guys that left were just brought in for that, previous season, right? These are the guys that arrived, and these are the guys that left, obviously dealing with a lot of Japanese players over the previous year. But, I mean, it's not like the whole team vanished, right? If I go down here and click on this match against Kovd, right, I can see Bold Batar and Sendenball and Batmunk and Sudo. And then the investigation starts to bear fruit because you start looking for those guys, but you're not able to find them because, well, the roster on Transfermarkt isn't fully fleshed out. So even though it appears that there wasn't some sort of gigantic outflow, it is possible there was a much larger flowing of players out of the club. Because whatever happened from last year to this year has produced some of the most spectacularly unbelievable results you've ever seen. They opened the season with a 14-0 loss to Khan Kunz Erkim. 14-0. It was 13-0 after 78 minutes. Okay? Just utter destruction, right? They lost their second match of the season 7-0 on the road against Kovd. The same team they beat 9-0 not 4 matches earlier in their Premier League history. Look, I don't know what could have possibly caused this, but at what point do you see a 16-goal swing for a club over one season? Right? It must have been a combination of multiple things. This club must have rotted out from the inside out. It must have ended up dumping a lot more players than Transfermarkt was able to keep track of because they clearly don't have, even though they're the authority on this sort of stuff, most of the time they clearly don't have all of the players in the Mongolian league under wraps the entire time. But this is insane, right? And it got worse. They lost 21-0 to a club named Darren. They were losing 12-0 at halftime. Still 0-0. Boys, that's the team talk you got to go with, by the way. Still 0-0. They lost to Falcons 12-0. They lost to Brera Ilch, the team that they got rid of a bunch of players to. Not a bunch, but, 4. They lost them 20-0, right? And Brera Ilch won this match 20-0 after getting a 20th minute red card that also seems to have, in the way the score is logged, given a penalty to Tuv Azarganud. They got a red card and a penalty out of it in the 20th minute and still lost 20-1. I'd like to believe that if you took a team from the 9th tier of England, the 10th tier of England even, and you put them on the field against a Premier League team, West Ham, they wouldn't lose 20-1. They've got a shot. But even if they did lose 20-1, you'd look at it and you'd go, yeah, that looks about right, considering they're 8 divisions ahead of them. So how? I ask you. You can form your own conspiracy theories because for the love of me, I cannot find it myself. Does Tuv Azarganud go from a solidly mid-table team that is putting together competitive score lines against every team in the league and is showing the ability to beat most of the teams in the league? How do they go from that to a team that doesn't even feel like a semi-pro outfit? Right? I mean, when teams from, I've covered this, when a team from the Gibraltarian League plays Copenhagen, a team that beat Manchester United last year, they lose 5-1, right? They play with structure, tactical discipline, understanding, team cohesion, sort of stuff that Tuv Azarganud had last year. And now all of a sudden, it just does not have. It's just completely gone. And I know I always say I'm going to keep tabs on all of these leagues all over the place. But I really want to know, if there's that one Mongolian member of the community here, what actually happened? Because I'm sure there is a news article in Mongolian that the great Genghis Khan would be able to read that I can't because I can't find it on Google. I would need him to translate it for me, honestly. That tells me the story of what happened to Tuva Zarganud. Because there's also relegation in this league, right? The bottom spot gets relegated, okay? You can't do... This isn't one of those leagues that's locked like MLS where you can technically just be terrible and it doesn't matter. They're going to go down. It's basically already guaranteed they're going to go down unless they're about to sign 15 people that are somehow going to turn around their season entirely, in which case seeing a team get promoted with a -7, or seeing a team not get relegated with like a -75 goal difference if they just had a normal season from here on out would be insane. Oh yeah, by the way, Brera Ilch, 8th in the league out of 10 teams. Them and Kovt, who they've both already played, are like the 2 worst teams in the league outside of Tuva Zarganud. Every single part of this is mind-blowing. It's like they're not even trying, right? And if they are really trying, if the tactics are set up and the training's been organized, then did they get hit by like secret microwaves? Is this the whole 5G thing I've been hearing about? Chemtrails in the sky, right? Poisoning Tuva Zarganud. Like something happened that shut their brain off and rolled it back to the Stone Age, because if these are the same players, this should not be possible. Unless every other team in the league is bribing them simultaneously, which I guess is like the other possibility that I'm looking at. Maybe the team is protesting their owners. Maybe they're not getting paid, right? There's so many different rabbit holes you could go down on this, but the bottom line is the only thing we can factually confirm is that this team, which doesn't seem to have had a monstrous outflow of players and actually made a few signings, has gone from mid-table to the worst team in a top league you've probably ever seen, ever. And they've got a lot of the season left to go to continue to get absolutely abused. So we'll see how that goes for them.